Hi, and welcome to our webinar today on how do you create a Windows 10 migration strategy. This is session 1 of 5. My name is Lee Gallington. I'm a business consultant here at PowerOn, and I'm joined by my colleague Graham Berry, who's our internal delivery manager.
First topic I want to cover is what is upgrade readiness and why should I care? So right now you're probably all aware that in January 2020 support runs out for Windows 7, meaning effectively that no longer can we just apply security and quality updates from Microsoft to Windows 7 and keeping it secure and up to date. This gives us a timeline that we need to reach to having delivered Windows 10 into our organizations. Obviously, if we've kind of got to this point in time and we haven't yet rolled out Windows 10, so the time is of the essence to achieve that. So one of the first things we need to do in any deployment project is assess our application landscape as well as our devices. Now, as I was saying, time is of the essence now. So one of the methods that typically been used in projects like this is to go out and speak to our business. Now, unfortunately, probably considering that timescales, that is not really an option now. So what other things are there available to us to sort of get ahead of that assessment stage? One of those, thankfully, has been provided by Microsoft in the form of Windows Analytics and what we're talking about today, upgrade readiness. Now, I was saying one of the things that obviously top of mind is getting to Windows 10, but hopefully you are aware of, though this has been mooted as the last ever desktop operating system, don't be fooled by the fact that this is the last time we're going to be upgrading our operating system from the likes of 7 to 10. It's just the name itself is changing, and actually what we're going to find is rather than just delivering a project as we need to do right now, we're going to be having to turn this into a process-driven exercise, as we'll be constantly evaluating, assessing our environment and upgrading it effectively on a yearly basis. So what is Windows Analytics? So Windows Analytics is essentially the sort of over framework that upgrade readiness is a part of. And Windows Analytics is an Azure component. Effectively, we're able to add that to our Azure subscription, and in the back end, what we do is we get our Windows-based desktop machines and we turn on what's known as the Windows telemetry service. Effectively, what that means is that each of our desktop OSs reports data back to Microsoft about the applications and the services that we're using, as well as a bit of heuristics and inventory information about the devices themselves. And Microsoft actually then exposes that to us through the Azure platform and through the sort of analytics portal that we're going to have a look at a little bit later in this webinar. And really why we want to do that is effectively sourcing this data and assessing our environment and actually making that available to us to make sort of actionable insight and being able to plan our migration and some of the elements of works that we need to do to prepare for that. As I was saying, Windows Analytics itself is a suite, upgrade readiness being a component of that. There are two further components: update compliance, as the name suggests, looking at the software and quality update status across our device estate, and also one on device health, actually looking at the general health of our devices and are there any aspects of their operation that are impacting the end user experience. We're not really going to cover those two here. We're just going to focus on upgrade readiness because that's more in focus with our overall webinar series. But likely we will probably do another webinar in the future expanding out on this Windows Analytics topic. So earlier in the webinar, I also introduced the idea of Microsoft's modern desktop assessment. So what is that? So effectively it is a Microsoft funded program that can be delivered through various Microsoft partners. Now, there are obviously certain criteria that goes with being able to sign up to this funding. Please get in touch. We can have a conversation about that and see if that might be applicable to yourselves as an organisation. But effectively, what it really is about is a relatively short engagement where we can come in and we'll enable and deploy Windows Analytics with yourselves across your desktop estate, and then effectively taking the data, as I've described, that's been surfaced in that Windows Analytics portal solution, extracting some of that, doing an analysis and presenting back findings and recommendations based on either how you can consider your application and your device estate and effectively assess your Windows readiness, taking your estate to Windows 10.
So we'll just move on now onto how you can actually deploy the Upgrade Readiness Workspace. There are a few prereqs that you might need to do in your environment. There are a few KB updates that you may require. You also need an Azure subscription. That's if you've got an existing subscription, you can use that. If you don't have a subscription, you can always set one up. That's free, and any data that the Windows Analytics uses is free as well. When you actually deploy this, you get a commercial ID, which is a specific string of digits that's reliant just to your single workspace. You deploy that commercial ID through various choices of group policy, SCCM, or another tool of choice. So by enabling telemetry and running the Microsoft deployment tool, which is Upgrade Readiness Script, you can deploy this at scale to your entire environment. Once the telemetry data is turned on, it takes up to 48 hours for that data to appear in the Azure subscription, and then you can start crunching the numbers, which we can move on to and show you what that's going to look like and how you can use that data moving forward to assess of your estate, your device drivers, and any blockers that you might face when you're moving between Windows 7 and Windows 10. And like Lee mentioned earlier, the evergreen Windows 10, Windows 10 as a life cycle. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to give you a demo of Upgrade Readiness and how to read its data. I'm just going to quickly talk you through how you can create your Azure Workspace, Log Analytics Workspace for Upgrade Readiness. If you've already got an Azure subscription, this is the landing page you'd be used to. If you don't have an Azure subscription, like I mentioned, you can set one up. We can help you through the Modern Desktop Assessment, Microsoft's MDA. Please get in touch. So, you'd just create a resource. Microsoft made it fairly easy on this part. With the Upgrade Readiness, there is an actual workspace to create. So we create that, call it something we want. So I'm going to go with do somewhere a bit local. That will deploy the Log Analytics Workspace. And then create the Upgrade Readiness Workspace there. So that's it really. What I'll do is, rather than show you the one that I've just created, I'll show you the one that's already been created and populated with data. The first screen you're going to actually want to use here is, like I mentioned earlier, the commercial ID key. So you need to take a copy of that and make sure you don't regenerate that at any point in case you need to, because you'd have to redeploy this across your whole estate. So copying that commercial ID, keeping that somewhere safe. You can always refer back to it in the portal as well. And like I say, that is the commercial ID you would need to push via either group policy, SCCM. There's various ways and means and Microsoft documentation on how you can push this to your estate. I won't go into the mass details of how to deploy that. If you do want help or any assistance on how you would deploy that to your estate, like I mentioned, if you get in touch, we can help you through that. So what we'll do is, like I mentioned, commercial ID key there. The actual data is in the log analytics workspace. So this is where we get to see your sort of red, amber, green status as such for things like applications and device drivers. The bits that matter basically, as you go through your migration, you're gonna need to know where your application estate currently is and where you think you're going to need it to get it to by the end of the migration. So the data is coming through here. This is what you would be seeing on a day-to-day basis. It refreshes every 24 hours. You can target version at whichever version of Windows you're trying to achieve. 1903 currently, this data here is looking for 1809. Gives you a list of the amount of computers you've got in your estate. Even helps you with things like Spectre and Meltdown to see whether you're actually patched and ready for that, obviously with it being a vulnerability. The key blades to be looking at as you go through any migration is the identification of any important applications. So this will list all the applications, all the application data that was sent via the telemetry service from your devices into the Azure portal. So when you first look at this, there'll probably be quite a lot of applications, and this is where you'd probably start to look at how you could rationalize those applications down. So phase one, rationalizing applications. There might be multiple versions of Adobe, certain applications that you don't actually need because Windows 10 might provide them natively. Adobe Reader, that can be used within Google, Chrome, Edge, so you could mitigate certain applications from your estate. So when you first look at your applications, it will look top heavy. It will look quite a lot of applications. It helps you understand whether there are low install count. So you can actually see whether you're actually interested in some of the applications, because some of the applications may just be on two people's machines. As you can see here, total installs, 2. So that would be for you, for your strategy to understand, do I really care about 2 installs, or am I going to look at above 20, above 50? Those are the sort of things that you might want to assess as you go through your application rationalization. You can export this data to Excel. You can use Power BI. There's lots of excellent tools you can use alongside this workspace. If we just go back, there's a lot of reviewing of the applications you may need to do. So whilst there's some that are set to low install count, there's a lot that you'll need to actually go off and review. So just a quick rundown of this part of the blade here. You can come in, not reviewed, 1,000. Wow, it's quite a lot of apps. So you can come in here, right, okay, Microsoft Visual C++, what am I going to do with that one? Okay, that's review in progress. Okay, so we're working on that one. So, other applications, Windows Firewall Configuration Provider. Okay, as you go through understanding what you need to do in your environment, would you mark certain apps as mission critical, business critical, important, review in progress? And you can use this to be able to help you as you go through to sort of start granularly looking through your applications of where you need to get them. So that's it, identifying and rationalizing. The next blade actually helps you with resolving known issues. There's a lot of data that Microsoft is receiving through the telemetry, and if they've seen certain applications and know that they will deploy well within Windows 10, 1809, 1903, whichever version you choose to analyze your data against, it will help you further understand whether Microsoft have got known fixes or if you need to look at anything within it. So as it says here, attention needed, fix available. Let's have a quick look at some of these. Okay, Broadcom 2070. Okay, it's basically telling us here the application is going to be removed during the upgrade. Okay, that's one to think of. So you're going to know that certain applications, display link, core software, right, okay, as part of my upgrade, this is basically saying this will get removed. So that's something to think about. You're going to be aware of as you go through your migration. You might say, well, okay, we'll put the latest version on within the task sequence or however you deploy Windows. These are all information you can use to assess and move forward with your Windows 10 migration. So that's applications. There's known driver issues, whether they're available in the box from Windows, whether you need to check with your vendor, whether you need to import them from Windows Update before and after. This will help you understand what sort of drivers you may face an issue with as you roll through the various options through Windows, and then on, like we mentioned, the evergreen Windows 10 as a service, Windows Lifecycle Management, whichever way you want to call it. It even helps you to the point of if you had 97 apps and drivers to test, you could unblock 10% of your computers, 10% of our computers. Right, okay, what do I need to concentrate on to be able to move quickly in my migration? If I look at apps and drivers, 1,000 to actually unblock 80% of my computers. Okay, so there's lots of ways you can use this data and mine down even further to look at applications, rationalize, resolve issues, move forward, and then actually you can move forward to deploy them once you've got your estate into a good state. So if you're ready to upgrade, you can actually export the computers into a spreadsheet and then you'd know what you're doing. If you're using SCCM, this actually can be targeted from SCCM. You can link this to your Upgrade Readiness Workspace, and then you can start forming collections from that, and then obviously deploy out from those collections. And as you deploy, the next blade is actually monitoring it going forward. So how well those migrations have gone, if there's been any issues, if there's been any driver issues, it will report all that information back for you. And then a little bit more information here. You've also got some Office add-ins so they can help you identify what sort of add-ins you've got within your Office applications. So that's pretty much what this tool can do, and that's the demo of that for you.
Brilliant, thanks for that, Graham. Just to wrap things up really, just wanted to do a bit of a quick summary and talk about potential next steps for you. So as we talked about, Windows Analytics, it's the heart of the framework around upgrade readiness. Why do we use it? Why do we want to use it? Effectively, taking loads of data from our existing desktop OS estate, using that telemetry interface, as we were saying, sending that through to Microsoft, surfacing it through the Azure portal, and actually giving us the ability to extract loads of data that we can't readily put our hands on any other way, effectively. Looking at our application estate, giving us the ability to sort of prioritize certain applications, certain tasks, giving us some help from Microsoft's wealth of knowledge and wealth of sort of analytic data from the rest of the world, if you like, to tell us what applications are in a good state already, the versions that you've got to go to Windows 10, where you might have challenges, and similarly how that flows to sort of the device hardware you've got as well, and very importantly the drivers associated to that hardware. As Graham very nicely showed us in that demo, it's relatively straightforward interface, but there is a lot of data behind there. So this is kind of why we, if it is applicable to you, the modern desktop assessment is really a great service, especially as it can be funded perhaps by Microsoft. It really sort of steps us through that process, not just putting in the Windows Analytics framework and getting you going there, but also helping you with analysing that and presenting back some of its findings and recommendations. So can't promote it more. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much, and from Graham, I'm sure.
Yeah, if you have any questions, guys, just...
So as you see on the screen, just fire us in an email to info@poweronplatforms.com or obviously have a look at our website. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you.